Hello and welcome to the program. This week I'm Layo Olarinde. Let's begin in South Africa. About 200 pilots representing 90% of FlySafair's pilot workforce are on strike over low wages, and they're demanding a 10% pay increase while the airline is offering 5.7%. FlySafair has had to cancel some of its flights this morning due to the strike. The pilots are calling for their salaries to be rectified as they were cut down during the COVID-19 pandemic. According to Solidarity, that's a union representing some of the pilots, the strike and resulting flight disruptions could last up to 2 weeks if their demands are not met. Well, the president of the World Bank Group, Ajay Banga, has wrapped up his first visit to Songo in Mozambique's Tete province. He was in the country for a high-level engagement with Mozambican President Daniel Chapo, who has expressed a keen interest in strengthening cooperation with the World Bank, especially in driving key economic projects with energy development high on the agenda. Our South Africa correspondent, Innocent Samosa, has the details.
It was a day of celebration and excitement at the Songo landing strip as the community welcomed World Bank Group President Ayabanga. He later toured the Kahorabasa hydropower plant, where he was briefed on some of the region's electricity challenges. Well, the company has recorded some dividends, but of course they're facing challenges of supply and demand. But on the supply side of things, they are talking about the issues of ailing infrastructure and of course old machinery. One would imagine that the company is celebrating its 50th anniversary, so old machinery is one of those problems. But we do know that the SADC region is facing issues of a shortage of around 10,000 megawatts. But they're saying that the partnership with the World Bank would be a progressive move in terms of dealing with the issues of infrastructure around the region. Meanwhile, the World Bank leader underscored Mozambique's energy potential.
Nobody has the capacity or capability to do what can be done with the assets of this country. So I think this is a real opportunity to not only see and understand what has been done 50 years ago, which now can be the basis of the next set of investments. We are discussing with the government of Mozambique the idea of investing in another 1,500 megawatts.
Faz parte do Grupo Banco Mundial. Podemos ter uma parceria público-privada.
As I very well said to the president of the World Bank and other partners of the World Bank Group who can come and invest in this whole energy grid that we are talking about, producing energy through hydroelectric power stations, solar power stations, gas power stations, and also wind power stations.
Carol Siam, CEO of Pandakua, says an estimated $1.4 billion would go a long way in helping the company reach new heights and expand its impact in the energy sector.
The entirety of this project, if we include the financial and labor aspect, will be well above $1.4 billion. It is very important for us to analyze not only the documentation, but ideological issues and also infrastructural issues.
As Mozambique looks to power up its economy and expand access to energy, the visit by the World Bank Group president brings a renewed hope for stronger partnerships and sustainable development. From Mozambique in Songo, Innocent Samosa, Channels Television News.
We're in Kenya now, where prominent Kenyan activist Boniface Mwangi has been charged with illegal possession of ammunition linked to a protest last month in which at least 19 people were killed. He denied the charge and has been released on bail. Well, the police had earlier said Mr. Mwangi was not charged with facilitation of terrorist acts. On Wednesday, investigators said they had seized phones, a laptop and notebooks from his Lukenya home on the outskirts of the city, the capital city, Nairobi, and hard drives, computers, tear gas canisters, and a blank firearm round from his office. His arrest, and especially the suggestion that he would face terrorism charges, sparked a wave of condemnation in the country, with human rights groups denouncing it as aimed at suppressing opposition voices. The activist also denied the accusation against him, posting on his X page, "I am not a terrorist." The alleged offences are linked to anti-government protests back in June, where, according to the state-funded Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, 19 people died when demonstrators clashed with police. Hundreds were also injured, and property and businesses were damaged. Well, joining us now for more on this is Kenyan journalist Cyrus Zombati in Nairobi. Hello, Cyrus. Thank you for joining us on Network Africa. What more can you tell us about the circumstances surrounding Boniface Mwangi's arrest, and also how authorities have been able to justify these recent charges against him?
Well, thank you for me in the show. What I can tell you is that I know for a fact that the state has been looking for a way of arresting Boniface Mwangi and link him to a kind of a crime that they thought would kind of pin him down. But Mwangi has been kind of shying off from the recent protests. He never participated in none of those in a way. He never mobilized. In the past one, he used to, but now this one, he never participated in none of them. But then there was that suspicion that he was doing it behind the scene. Since he was arrested yesterday, on Saturday, there have been so much protest online by human rights activists in the country. Mwangi is a prominent activist in the country because of his prowess to kind of mobilize people within a short while. So since then, there's been so much pressure, and that's why I think the state dropped the terrorism charges which they wanted to file against him. Now they brought the issue of him owning a tear gas and a blank bullet, which I believe, if and it's true, he might have collected it from the streets when the protests were being, or somebody collected for him from the streets when the protests were ongoing in the country.
Now, we understand that, items like tear gas canisters and a blank round were allegedly recovered from his home. Has the police provided, any concrete evidence linking these items to criminal intent?
Well, Boniface Mwangi has denied the claims because they collected the same items from his office, allegedly. Mwangi says it's not true. He never owned such things in his office. And now for the police, I believe this was a holding charge. They wanted to hold him in a way. Now we will have to wait and see what plays out in court. If they collected those things in his office, it meant that he might have recorded it because when they collected the same from the office, there must be a recording, kind of an itinerary showing that you have collected ABCD from an office as an evidence to be used against you. If Boniface Mwangi didn't record that in his statement, then it means the whole charge is now going to fall.
Well, like you mentioned earlier, there have been protests online. That's been the public reaction, so far in Nairobi, especially with the hashtag Free Boniface campaign that's trending. Now that he's been charged, with illegal possession of ammunition, the police there U-turning on the terrorism charge. What are the likely consequences of this charge if, he's found guilty?
Well, the charge is remain in a way. It's a small charge, and I don't think it will hold because he has a strong legal team, and he was given a personal bond of 1 million. That means you yourself as an individual, you say, "I'm here, I will not run away." So he didn't pay anything. He actually walked out of the cells when he was released. Kenyans have been saying that the charges are kind of fake, being used against Boniface Mwangi to silence him, which men believe is true, that he's being kind of victimized, be silent. So for the state to sustain that charge, it may take a lot in terms of bringing evidence to show that the items were indeed found in his office. It's the onus is of the prosecution, which I believe is difficult to sustain to the end.
All right then, Cyrus Zombati, Kenyan journalist, thank you for speaking to us on the program.
Thank you for having the show.
The Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations, Aminina Muhammad, has expressed support for Governor Abba Yusuf's social development agenda, pledging closer collaboration between the United Nations and Kano State here in Nigeria in advancing the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. Mrs. Muhammad, who visited Kano to condole with the government and people of the state over the recent passing of elder statesman Aminu Dantata and former President Muhammadu Buhari, also used the occasion to commend the governor's commitment to people-focused governance. The UN Deputy Secretary General applauds the Kano State government for aligning its policies with key SDG targets, especially in the areas of education, healthcare, and youth empowerment. And all the way from the United States, the mayor of Houston, John Whitmire, has called for the establishment of direct flights between Nigeria and Houston, as well as the opening of a Nigerian consulate in the state. And this is in a bid to further strengthen the relationship between both countries. This partnership was discussed during a meeting between the chairman CEO of the Nigerians in Diaspora Commission, Honorable Abike Dabiri Erewa, and the mayor pro tem, Martha Castex Tatum, who represented Mayor John Whitmire in Texas. According to the mayor, the new partnership would further deepen collaboration in areas such as consular representation, trade, and diaspora engagement, noting that Houston hosts one of the largest Nigerian populations in the United States. Mayor Pro Tem Castex Tatum emphasized that such measures would not only strengthen bilateral relations, but also enhance services and opportunities for the Nigerian community in Houston. In response, Honorable Dabiri Erewa assured that the Ministers of Foreign Affairs and Aviation in Nigeria are currently reviewing both requests. Well, let's now take a look at stories and happenings that made headlines over the weekend.
A huge fire swept through the Nyakaliba neighborhood of Bukavu, destroying around 200 houses, leaving scores of families without shelter. The blaze, which reportedly broke out during the night, spread rapidly across the densely packed neighborhood as residents spent days clearing the debris and trying to rebuild. Mosala neighborhood chief Olivier Bahati noted that houses were built extremely close together, pointing to structural issues as a major cause of the rapid spread of the blaze. The ruling Cameroon People's Democratic Movement, RDPC, has officially submitted the candidacy of President Paul Biya for the upcoming presidential election. The RDPC delegation made the submission during a visit to the Elecam headquarters in Yaoundé. President Biya, who is 92 years old and believed to be the oldest living head of state in the world, has ruled Cameroon since 1982 and is seeking an 8th term in office. Presidential elections in Cameroon are scheduled for October 12. Meanwhile, Cameroonian opposition leader Maurice Kamto has announced his resignation from the Cameroon Renaissance Movement, CRM, to run for the upcoming presidential election under the Manidem, African Movement for New Independence and Democracy, in response to the government's electoral restrictions.
It's the same path that Barrister Akere Muna chose to present his candidacy for the presidential election of this year, 2025. On the strength of this analysis, I sent my letter of resignation as a member of the Cameroon Renaissance Movement on 25th June 2025. I joined the African Movement for New Independence and Democracy, Manidem, with which we had been in discussion for several months on 27 June 2025. And on 16 July 2025, I was nominated by Manidem as a candidate in the presidential election of 12 October 2025.
According to Mr. Kamto, the switch serves as a crucial step to get around what he described as an unfair and restrictive electoral system. On Saturday, hundreds of supporters of former Chadian Prime Minister Dr. Success Masra gathered in N'Djamena, calling for his immediate release from prison. During the rally, the Transformers Party coordinator, Mbadeja Grace, addressed the judiciary directly, saying, "The people are watching and the world is watching." Meanwhile, strategic advisor Jegwalmbaye Ndinga described Mr. Masra's detention as a judicial tragedy, adding that he has been convicted for 2 months without any evidence, claiming the case is empty. Success Masra, founder of the Transformers Party and former Prime Minister, was placed in provincial detention in May. He faces a series of serious charges, including inciting hatred, complicity in murder, arson, and forming or supporting armed groups.
Former Chief of Staff to the Nigerian President, Professor Ibrahim Gambari, has stated that the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, has cleared protocols that prohibit the recognition of any government that comes to power through unconstitutional means. He explained that due to this standing rule, countries like Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger have exited the regional bloc after their respective military takeovers were not recognized. Speaking on Sunrise Daily this morning, Professor Gambari acknowledged that perhaps the approach or method of engagement with those countries could have been handled differently. Nonetheless, he emphasized that adherence to democratic principles remain at the core of ECOWAS values.
There are some protocols and rules, good ones, that any member of the ECOWAS who changes government other than by constitutional means, there are some sanctions, and it's in the application of that sanctions that some 3 members of the organization are left. Now, you can leave ECOWAS, but you can't leave West Africa, and that is why the room is always open for them to rejoin the organization of which they were founding members. Maybe the handling of the process of engagement could have been done differently, but by affirming a principle that you cannot change government other than by constitutional means, which you agreed to as a member of ECOWAS without some consequences. That's part of the problem. And now I agree totally that the room has been left open. I mean, because our security interests, our political interests, our economic interests are closely aligned with some of those member states that have left. Where, for example, Niger, with whom we've always have a traditionally positive relationship, we have 1,500 kilometers of border. So the Lake Chad Commission, the multilateral joint task forces for security, daily exchange of goods and services, they're all there. So they cannot disappear from West Africa. We are coming new challenges like terrorism. We have to get them back. And I think there's an opportunity which must be seized in trying to get them to return to the family.
He also addressed the visa policy and entry-related concerns, emphasizing that such matters should be approached through diplomatic channels, as this remains the most constructive path towards achieving lasting and peaceful resolutions.
Visa issues, regulations, entry, that's subject to a negotiation and discussion between sovereign countries. The right of entry is in the hands of the government of each of the countries. So I believe that all these visa issues has to be handled diplomatically, and I believe there can be a resolution to hitches that whenever they come. Ultimately, it's the responsibility of the government of Nigeria to protect interests and the sovereignty of our country, to set the rule for who comes in, and therefore, and since international relations is based on reciprocity, it's important that other people recognize that if they do things to us that the government does not feel is appropriate, we also have some recourse. To promote the government is to promote the interests of Nigeria and Nigerians, but to do it in the context of the rules and regulation of other countries. So I think this lies squarely in the realm of diplomacy, in the realm of negotiation, and reaching consensus on what is acceptable to the countries that are receiving people and the country and the people of other countries that we are receiving.
In a move to advance its regional efforts to combat food insecurity and climate change, the ECOWAS Regional Fund for Agriculture and Food, housed within the ECOWAS Bank for Investment and Development, has commenced the training of financial institutions in West Africa with the theme West African Initiative for Climate Smart Agriculture Training Program for Financial Intermediaries. The organizers believe that building technical assistance for financial intermediaries and capacity building for agri-SMEs is the primary target of the training.
When you want to mitigate climate effect on agriculture, this is when we bring tools on climate smart agriculture, meaning that you will bring what we call climate smart technologies. So it means today you need to generate improved seed that will not stand long before you may plant rice and waiting 3 months to harvest. The techniques now is to have improved seed, for example, for rice, just for 120 days instead of 3 months, 2 months, etc., etc. This has been already on operation. They should be ready to operationalize the fund as quick as possible for the benefits of the farmers. So when we say for the benefits of the farmers, this is to aim at the end of the day for ensuring food security in our countries and globally for the region.
Under the ECOWAS Agricultural Trade Program, well, we've seen two key issues. One is access to finance, but the second one is what practices practitioners adopt across the value chain. So this event gives us the opportunity to simultaneously tackle these problems. I mean, whilst providing access to affordable finance, we're also able to push banks to begin to appraise agricultural projects with the lens of climate responsibility.
I'm very happy to be here in Lagos, Nigeria, to represent my country, to represent Africa, because my institution, Crédit Mutuel du Sénégal, have a lot of money that we inject in the economics, in the agriculture, but we have a lot of problems to finance all the value chain and all the intervenants that are in this value chain. And we need this help, we need this formation, this training, to have all the tools and the capacity, the ability to communicate and to participate, to do information, formation, financement, and insurance.
A long-awaited breeze of hope is emerging in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. After years of violence and displacement of countless civilians, a principal agreement has been signed between the Congolese government and the M23 rebel group, often accused of receiving support from Rwanda. The accord, signed in Doha under the mediation of Qatar, commits both parties to protecting civilians while fully respecting the territorial sovereignty of the DRC. In Goma, that's the capital of North Kivu province, which has been under M23 control since January, well, the announcement has sparked a cautious but genuine sense of optimism. The agreement includes a permanent ceasefire and explicitly bans any military attacks, aerial bombardments, or territorial advances. Well, for many residents, the announcement brings both relief and skepticism. The international community has also welcomed the agreement as a significant step while urging continued vigilance. France and the United Nations peacekeeping mission, MONUSCO, has stressed the importance also of swift, concrete, and sincere implementation of the agreement. And as we end the program today, authorities in Niger say they are looking into the recent sale of a meteorite discovered in their country, saying it could be a case of illicit international trafficking. Niger says it will open an investigation into the sale of a Martian meteorite discovered in the West African country in the year 2023. Well, the rock is the largest piece of Mars ever found on Earth and was sold for more than $5 million at an auction in New York last week. In a statement broadcast on public television, the government said it has instructed the ministers of mines, higher education and justice to look into the case, which is said likely bears the hallmarks of illicit international trafficking. At 25 kilograms, the red brown and grey meteorite is about 70% larger than the next largest piece of Mars found on Earth and represents nearly 7% of all Martian material currently on this planet. It was discovered by a meteorite hunter in the Agadez region of Niger back in November 2023. And that's it on the program for today. Thank you for watching. I'm Layo Olarinde.